That's the SAS website. If you ever have any questions, the best thing to do is come down to the contact us. If you have any issues, tech issues, if you click on that contact us, if there's a tech issue, you can email it to the tech folks. One of the big thing is people forget their passwords, so you can email that. But the other thing is there's this thing called content advisory email. If you click on that, that gives you all the folks who are the content advisors for every content area in the Department of Ed and their email and contact information. So, you know, if you have a question concerning science, which everybody knows the science god is Dave Bauman, you can contact him right there and get his email. So that's one way to contact anybody that is there. The other thing is the help down at the bottom lets you get in there and look at all the different aspects of SAS. It gives you different tools. You know, if you want to, you know, search the standards, which we're going to do, how that is done. It kind of gives you some directions. So there's one on the Assessment Center. So as we go through and you want to learn more about the Assessment Center, go back to that information. You can go right there and get it. So that is the SAS. And again, the Assessment Center was the big deal. Down here is just stuff that's been put out. And you can get this via email, such as the RSS feed. If you click on this little orange icon, that would go to your RSS email. And anytime there's an update on SAS on the homepage, you will get an email saying that there's SAS. So the last one was Presidential Award winners were nominated or announced for the state for the science and math for 2019. They're just a little behind. So starting that homepage hasn't changed too much.
Hold on one second. Mary, do you have a login for SAS? I'm just curious if you have a login that you need to know how to even get a login, Mary. Sorry, I just wanted to see if she has a login, if you needed to go back that far. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep. And to get a login on SAS, if you just click on.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Can you just go over that just in case that
so if you click on once you get to SAS, this yellow box here at the right and the top is where you would log in. And it gives you My SAS Tools. And then if you need to log in, you click on login, you click the username and password. If you do not have a username and password, no problem, you just register, you fill out the information, you get it. It is a free account for everybody. I would personally choose your school accounts because you'll need it. And then there's no password descriptors, so you can put anything. I put the easiest stuff in the world in it and call it a day. So let's see if I remember my password. This might be a challenge.
So Jen, I would have to assume that I have one. And I guess if I don't remember the password, I'll hit forgot password.
Forgot password. It'll send something to your email.
Okay.
And then once you log in, it should have your name up here that you register and that you were logged in.
Okay.
And it is important to have an account because there are features in SAS that you can access without being logged in, but there's a lot of really good stuff that you do need to be logged in for. So it is definitely worth taking a few minutes and creating an account.
Absolutely, especially when it comes to the assessment center and getting all that information. So the big thing that changed across the top is if you look before, you had the standards and then you had to go to that page. Now it has that drop down. So if you know you just want to go to standards and download standards or download PSSA and eligible content, you can just hit the standards drop down and go straight to that page. So we try to eliminate some of the clicks that are there. So we're going to go to search standards. Now the search function changed immensely from last time, that little yellow boxes that were at the top. One thing you can do, if you know you're going to be a 4th grade English teacher and that's all areas you want to look at, you can set your preference under My Preferences. You can create a new preference and make yourself a 4th grade English teacher So when you start doing your search, it automatically hits you can set your preferences and you'll stay within, say, 4th grade English. So since I don't have any preferences, I say do not put it in there at all. So you can search by standards, by keyword, or by the standard itself. Search by grade level. We're going to search 4th grade. And then we come down, we can search by subject. And again, we're going to say, that's course, I'm sorry. We're going to search by English Language Arts, and then it automatically populates the standards. And then if we click on the standard, it even takes you up one further, the grade level and the standard area. And then down below, you can see under the standard, there's 3 eligible content and there's alternate eligible content. The alternate eligible content is for the PASA. So we want to stay within the eligible content, and then you can see what the eligible content is. So now from that eligible content, you can look at all the assessment questions that are there, or you can look at all the materials and resources. We could go straight to materials and resources that line up with that eligible content only. So, and as you can see, some of them, depending how they're coded, you may get other, it says pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, even though we're in 4th grade, it may be tagged somewhere at that eligible content level. So, all right, so that's standards. And again, most everything else stayed the same to download the standards. You have the PA core standards, all the academic standards, the English language development standards, which have changed, and they're changing some more, and there's a lot more resources we'll look at for that. The one thing that we really, for the early childhood, if you work in a district that deals with the K to 2, there's the early childhood standards. And I have found that there's a lot of teachers that have not seen these, and they teach K to 2. But if we look at this, one thing about this is the document. This is that large 1st grade PDF from Oakdale. And one thing we stress that's going to be important, in the content, you have every content area in the standard area. One thing they're going to look at is down at the bottom, this key learning, social emotional development, and student interpersonal skills. That's going to be huge coming in this next year for these K to 2 teachers and for the students as they come back. Depending on what their home life situation, what their family situation was, what they've been told and not been told, and how much interaction they've had with other kids, that may be an issue when they start all coming back together. So, and then also the key learning for apartment, family, schools in there. So this one right here, that down to 16.1 and 2, we scroll all the way down. And as you can see, that's the end of the page. I'm going to scroll up to the top of it here. You know, positive behavior techniques, and that's going to be what the learner can do, what adults can do, and looking at. So for that K to 2 teachers, that's going to be extremely important. And if you've got access to send this to them, it's a PDF. You can give it to them. They can download it for free. All right, so that's the standards. And then you have all the different standards that we've looked at under the standard area.
Kevin, can I ask you a question specific
Yes.
to science? So because we have 2 science people on the call and I'm science, so there's always been a little confusion on the standards that are in SAS and what's actually board approved. And I know we're revising our standards, so maybe it's a moot point, but when you search by standards, are they searching by 2002 or is it, what standards are?
They are searching by the SAS standards.
Okay, so those
that are on this document. So it's not the 2002, it's the, what year are the SAS standards? 2012.
Yeah.
So you're going to look at those standards. Now in the curriculum frameworks, there is a crosswalk document that aligns all of that together. So if you science folks, you may have seen that. That's in there. We'll just double check where that is. So we're going to, again, skip assessment and save that for the end. Go back to safe and supportive schools. That is in the process of changing right now. There's not much there, just the Act 126, but it's going to provide a lot more information to support teachers and instruction when it comes to all the issues of safe supporting schools, equity, inclusion, you know, bullying, suicide prevention, all that on the instruction side of that to support teachers in the classroom. Now, the other one, next bar over, is going to be the materials and resources. And again, you just have the drop-down menu of all that. If we just click on materials and resources, you go back to that old, what we've seen before in the past under materials and resources. If you have not seen it, because we're dealing with a lot of things going to be virtual, depending on districts, whether they're all virtual, blended virtual, how they're doing that, whether they're having a virtual academy within the school. The Power Library is huge. If you're not familiar with the Power Libraries, it is the entire public library system online, free for everybody. Teachers, students, parents. So it gets right in here. There's some information here to access the Power Library. Again, you can get an if students have an e-library card, they can use that library card. If not, they can get themselves an e-library card and get on here. It has books, e-resources, research, whatever it's there. For little kids, for teens, you can chat with a librarian. So as I do trainings otherwise, and we're face-to-face and there's time, pose a question to the librarian and see what they're going to say. They work 24/7 at that. They will answer your questions. If we scroll down to the bottom of that page and go to the FAQs, that gives you everything you need to know about the Power Library. I know a lot of districts have Scholastics for their elementary. You can get the Scholastic readers online through the Power Library for free. They're all right there. So everything is there for that. So it's a great resource to give to parents. You can link to it so they can get on and get those resources. So recommend that anybody who's doing any kind of online, look at that Power Library. And one, if you're doing science research, you can get all the different literature. It's a safe zone of the public library that kids, instead of going to Google and looking for information, it's all library based. All right, back to materials and resources. And again, there's the career readiness toolkit, Act 35, organ and tissue awareness toolkits, a lot of information there for teachers. The TDA toolkit, which has been around a while, the PA literacy plan, which is new. And I don't know if anybody's here is involved in that, but now the whole literacy plan that they did the training on is here on the SAS site with the fillable documents that you can use and create the plan yourself. So all their training now has moved to online within the SAS site. And the last thing is search. Again, over the summer, all the materials and resources have been vetted. So we vetted them for dead links, alignment to standards and eligible content, and information that's there, and many more have been added. Again, you can then, the search is the same. Again, if you are a preference and your preference is 4th grade ELA, as soon as you click on that preference, you're going to get all 4th grade ELA stuff. But if we go to 6th grade, and now we're going to scroll, since we've got science teachers, science technology, and we're going to do both science engineering. Now we've got materials and resources for that grade. So again, it's an activity, web-based resource, whatever it may be. There's 6 pages for that grade level.
Kevin,
Yes.
some of those have the triangle with the exclamation point next to them, right there.
And we were down here, and that triangle says, may contain advertisements. So it's a commercial site, so you may get some advertising within that. It's something that wasn't built in. So if we look at that,
But
this
it's
one
in
right
the
here, the
one that-
resonator. It's from Exploratorium. If you're familiar with Exploratorium, you're going to get commercial and advertisements within Exploratorium. Great website, great information. Actually, if you're a science person for online stuff, it's awesome. But you will get so the content providers, Exploratorium, there is the activity, materials, duration. So all that information is there. for that science. So that's one way to look at that.
Okay, so just to clarify, the information has been vetted, but there might be advertisements on there.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mary, in terms of our district too, I would say that with that little exclamation point, you might want to just double check that our district doesn't have it blocked for any particular reason. Like check the
I
web.
would, the material, there's a lot of materials and resources there. Some may be applied to what you want and some may not. So always preview that information first. And just to double check, it's not something you want to go that morning, say, hey, I'm going to whip something out, pull it up and then show your kids right there. It may not work. So again, vet all this stuff as every good teacher does with all their information. So back to our search. In the search too, if we look at this, there are content collections. So there's content collection, British Library, of Brain Pop, Congressional Medal of Honor. If you click on one of those content collections, such as Exploratorium, you're going to get all the Exploratorium activities that are in the materials and resources. So they're all going to be there. So that's one way to search. Another way to search that, if you go down to content type, you can go to lesson plans, instructional content, and you can look at that content collection. So when I clicked on it, it automatically will search that. But let's say if we click on British Library too, it'll automatically give you Exploratorium and British Library. So there's more than one way to look at the content collections. And also in materials and resources, if you click on Toolkit, there's a way to get all the different toolkits in SAS. So if you're not sure where it is, and you want to say, you just go to materials and resources, click on Toolkit. Now those are all the available toolkits you can look at. So depending on what you want to do. So the search function has really been expanded in materials and resources to narrow the search and give some good information for teachers. And you can also, well, content, if you know the standard, you can search by standard, which is right here. You can type it in. So that's another way. So again, always vet these materials. I know we vetted them over the summer just to make sure there's a lot of dead links we had to take out and information like that. And some was the alignment weren't bad. So again, that's all there for materials and resources. Any questions to where we are?
I really appreciate that you guys took the time to go through and vet everything. That's amazing. Like that really makes it a one-stop shop. So thank you for doing that.
It's a start. So, all right, if we click on instruction, again, if you click on an instruction bullet, you're going to get that information right there. Here's the instructional toolkits, PA equity toolkit, that is new for teachers to look at equity inclusion within the classroom. You know, information out of that is there. If we go back to instruction, the newest things out of instruction, though, are the Pennsylvania Learns. If you remember before, it was the PA Learns Online that were there. And here's English Language Arts. Now, they're changing. Right now, they're still the PDF. I will show you math. Math now is an Excel spreadsheet. If you're familiar with the instructional frameworks for math, if you know any math teachers, they may be. But if we look at 4th grade math, move this up here. So 4th grade math, it downloads as an Excel sheet. And now this follows the instructional frameworks we have in SAS. About PA Learns. Can you see my screen? The Excel? Okay.
Not the Excel. We
Not
just
the Excel.
still see the SAS site.
All right. So how do I want to share, new share. All right. Now, can you see the Excel spreadsheet? Okay, so from that, the Excel spreadsheet, we looked at PA Learn, setting the stage, all the different modules that are over there. So in the instructional framework we'll look at, there were different modules for all the grade levels. the standards that were there. And then if we look at module 1, that's the module, the message. And if we scroll over, understanding whole digits, there are a bunch of resources in here for all of that. So now we've got more resources available that all have been vetted this last time for that information. And all this should be free for the most part. There may be 1 or 2 that have a minimal cost, and that would be in the notes. So that all that information is there based on that. Science and all right. Did I lose you?
We just don't see your screen. Kevin,
All right.
can you explain what the Learn On is?
The Learn On.
Or what you were just showing
Oh,
the
PA Learns.
Learns. Yeah.
So we were at PA Learns. In the past, PA Learns was originally iTunes U. If you remember that, a science, ELA, and math had a project with Apple doing iTunes U to put that information out as courses. And science had them too. And the problem is that the iTunes U went away, but there was some valuable information that teachers did work in there. So they originally kept them as PDFs. So here's a science PDF that is there from the iTunes U, and all the links based on the module title and what is there. The problem with this PDF, it is just scrolling on and on and on and on for all the different modules. You can't see the PDF, can you? Yeah, you should be able to. Yes. So we took in math, and we're working on the other, they're working on the other subjects, is put the modules in their separate Excel spreadsheets. That way, if you just want the information in that module, it's easier to find instead of scrolling down a 30-page PDF.
This could be really helpful though, as teachers are creating online learning opportunities for students. The fact that the links are there, this could be a really valuable tool.
It would be, and it's based on if you're looking at the science framework, this lines with the science framework that is there. You start looking at those chemistry, instructional matter, the lessons, then you've got the information that is here, the learning, they're discovering, whether they're modeling, and then the information that is there. And then science and ELA should be updated soon. I'm not sure where they are in the process, but we got math done up to Algebra 1. So in the science, probably the best one is the biology ones, because they model the keystone biology assessment anchor and eligible content. So if you really want to focus on that biology assessment anchor and eligible content, I would go to the PA Learns and look at these biology models, because they're right there. And that will be all that information. All right. The other last thing is what is new for instruction. And you may not seen this. We put this out middle of July, I do believe. Online resources for instruction. So every content area advisor went through. So we got career readiness resources, dance, driver's ed, environment and ecology, English language arts, all these content areas. And this was put out. So if we look at science, and I'm probably going to have to do a new share. Can you see that screen?
Yep.
Okay, can you see the science? Yeah, it opened up as a new page. So there's the science resources, again, put out by Dave Bauman, went through and looked at all different resources for science that is there. Some of it's like Exploratorium, which is there, American Association of Teachers, but all this information here, places to go to look that Dave said were quality places, instead of just Googling something or getting it off of Teachers Pay Teachers or whatever it may be. So all of that is there. And there's one for every content area, which makes it nice. So Lauren, did you see that before? Did you see all those
No, this is awesome. This is another like great timely resource that teachers can use as they're starting to build like online playlists and things for students as they're coming in and out kind of face to face and blended. Like we need these embedded resources. This is great.
And the thing is, this was put out in July, and I just think it got buried in the mess of all the information going out. So that is there. And again, that's for every content area, every course. So that's a resource there for every teacher. Because one thing, you start talking about the arts, the music teachers are figuring out what they're going to do if they're in a hybrid or blended model. You know, the art teachers in the same process. You know, all that information is there. All right. So that's instruction. The curriculum framework.
Kevin, I'm sorry.
And
If you go back to instruction, the instructional toolkits, is there anything in there that would be valuable for us right now?
I don't, it hasn't been updated, so I'm not sure it's good for the online or looking at a blended right now. So I would struggle with that.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep. I got a fly buzzing around my face. All right. The curriculum framework, which has not changed any, it's still there. If you're familiar with the ELA and math instructional frameworks, that information is there for them. If we look at the curriculum framework, again, the search is a little bit different, but if we go to science, all that information is there. The framework that's been in science that was put out 2 years ago now, that in there. And we'll see how this changes when it comes to the rewrite of the science standards. And I am not sure where they are in that process. They were just starting it. And then all the meetings went from face-to-face to online. So who knows where they are in that process amongst everything else. I think it took somewhat of a back seat.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit. I was on the writing committee, but a lot of work is still needs to be done, but they're making progress. But these curriculum frameworks, I think, are really helpful if you're trying to plan on grade level appropriate lessons, like we talked about at the beginning, where we don't want to go back and try to reteach, but these curriculum frameworks can really help make sure that you are teaching standards and competencies and big ideas that are on grade level.
So that is that. Now we're going to go back to the back one. We click on assessment. And again, if you're not familiar, the CDTs have changed immensely at the winter of last year. If you're familiar with the CDTs, prior to that, it was a one test, long test, 2.5 hours for the kids, kind of a struggle with them. Now the CDT has changed where you can assess in all the different reporting category areas. So I don't, let's see if it's on this one. It may or may not be. Nope. Let me see if it's on the other one. And it may not be there. Nope, it's not. So for science, you have all the reporting categories that are there. But prior to that, it was just one science test. Now you can report on all the reporting categories in science. So instead of teaching, you know, the whole thing and getting kids frustrated at a 2.5 hour test, you can teach one reporting category, which most of your information, and then give the CDT on that information. So you can really focus on where they are and what they've learned. And it's a shorter test. It's going to take, you know, 30 minutes, 45 minutes maybe for some of those kids, but it's a one period test. And actually, whether or not you'd want to, you can now have the ability, probably starting this year, to do it. You can give it to kids at home. Now, it would not be as secure as doing it in a classroom setting, but you could still give the kids CDT at home, and that information is in there. So the CDT has come a long way from what it was, and it's a web-based format, so it's much easier to use for the teacher, for the student, and the data gets back very quickly, and it's all based on the eligible content for the student. So that is the CDT. And the other thing, the biggest change in SAS has been, I'm not sure, have you seen the analyzing root cause? All right. if you look at PVAS, and if you've studied PVAS data, they always look at that data, but and look at that data there. But if we look at the analyzing root cause, they have ELA, math, and science. If you look at the science one, it's called digging deeper into the science. And what this document does, as you start, it covers different areas. It covers curriculum, assessment, and instruction, and the overall organization of the school. And what it starts to do, as you look at your data, or you actually just work with kids, it asks some good questions. Is the elementary science curriculum tightly aligned to the PA science standards? Whether or not it is. It starts asking teachers questions to see if you're doing the best practice when it comes to that information. So as you move forward, these are some questions you can have topics, maybe not the beginning of the year because we're going to look at all that, but as you start moving on and you start looking at the curriculum, looking at your instructional pieces, are you meeting the needs of all the kids when it comes to instruction? Is your instruction, good quality instruction that gets the kids to have that student discourse, higher DOK levels? This is a good piece to look at all that information. So yeah, does the written curriculum require students respond orally or in writing? And that can be different now because one thing in working with teachers, if you're in a hybrid setting or if you're in a completely online setting, how do you get good quality assessments from your curriculum? Because it's very easy to put you can do a bunch of DOK1 questions, multiple choice. They can sit in Google, type the question in and do that. So now it becomes, you've got to ask questions where they have to read, write, and respond. So it becomes more that open-ended. And hopefully you get a better clearing on their understanding and not just choosing that multiple choice question.
That's
that
a
is
good
out there.
reminder. I think assessments is the biggest worry for teachers right now with kids online. So yeah, that's a good reminder. And I love those questions.
That's a huge topic right now, is how do you do authentic assessments online? And you just have to do the best you can. I don't think there's no golden bullets that's going to do that, because they can have their phone and text back and forth or TikTok their videos back and forth and just submit them. So that's analyzing root cause. Now we're going to go back. The assessment center, this is the big change in SAS, if you haven't seen it. Again, you still have the build the assessments. You have the view my assessments. The two big things are create an assessment item. Now you have the ability to write your own questions in SAS and then save them. So not only could you pull assessment questions from SAS, but now you can start creating your own assessment bank of questions. And then what this check for understanding, the other thing now you can do is you can create a check for understanding in which now you can send students a link and they get an online assessment and they have to answer the questions, and then you get feedback on how well they did. So it's almost like Kahoot or something like that. And the thing about SAS has always been, it's always been free for teachers. So this check for understanding is just a free application for schools who may not have the ability to get those pay products. So in build an assessment, again, you start looking at you can search by standard or keyword. We're going to build, you can look at PDE assessment items or your own created assessment items. So as you start building that, and then there's the grade. So if we pick a grade, we pick a subject, and this time I am going to go with math because I like math. So now we've got 4, and it automatically puts them down there. And then you have the course. We're not going to deal with that because we don't know. Now we can look at assessment type, constructed, evidence-based, multiple choice, open-ended. You can look at assessment features, and that's really just for item response and what it's going to be. But you can search by standard. And if we click on a standard, you can boil it down and search by eligible content. So I can make questions based solely on a standard and even boil it down to an eligible content. Now, one thing it's assessment builder's been in the past, all the item samplers that the assessment folks in PDE put out become part of this assessment bank of questions. So you get a little bit of feel for what's on the S item samplers, science, ELA, and mathematics. So here we created to build an assessment. Here's all our questions. We just say, click add to my assessment, add to my assessment, add to my assessment. Now we're gonna scroll back up and we've create view my assessment. Now we've got our questions. Like we've done in the past, you can add, remove, and all of that. If we go to options, you can export it to a Word document, which people have done in the past, which works well. You can go back to add the assessment items. You can add it to your portfolio, but we're going to save this assessment, and then we're going to call it Grade 4 Practice 12 Math. And then I'm just going to put some instructions in here. So now we've saved this assessment. We saved an assessment. That's good. We look at it one more time. Let's go back to my assessment. And did it save?
Yeah, I think it's the very last one. Yeah.
Yep. I forgot to put the grade 4 in there. If we look at that, that's our assessment. We look at our options now. You can duplicate it if you want to make another copy of it. You can actually share this assessment. So this is new. So if you're a teacher, now this works well, not like Google Docs, but if you take this shared assessment, you put in one of your fellow teachers' email, they're going to get that assessment. And that assessment automatically goes into their My Assessment. So now you can save that, and those questions become part of their item bank. So that's one way now we can share assessments in SAS.
That's a great addition.
Huge.
Yeah.
Now, the caveat is that depending on the filters of your school, it comes from a SAS account, and sometimes that gets blocked in the filter and it gets put in junk mail. So you just have to realize that. So that's one way now we can share assessment. We're going to cancel that. We're going to go back to this view for check for understanding. Now these are practice check for understandings I've done. But if we want to create a new check for understanding, because we created that 4th grade assessment, we look at that assessment, and it was that practice one. We're just going to do practice. There's the assessment. We'll just call it math practice check. You can then set an end date. So let's say you want to give it to your students because they're blended tomorrow and they're online. You want them to do that. You say, we're going to end it at 13 at 2 p.m. And one thing this does for all multiple choice questions, it will display the answers when the kids answer, when they submit it. So if they get it right, it'll tell them they got it right. If they get it wrong, it'll tell them they got it wrong. So we can say, yes, we want that to display the answers. You create it, and now it is here. Math. This is our math practice check. And what you do is you get a link, and we copied that link. Now you can send that link out to all your students.
That is awesome. Very cool.
Now, it's the start of building the check for understanding. Right now, you only get classroom data.
Okay.
So you do not get individual student data. The issue becomes a privacy issue with PDE because of student data and all that. So that's what we're working through. But if we start looking at our results, I did this one on 6/25. I had 1 response, 10 questions. They complete the assignment, and it gives you all the questions, whether they got it right. So you'll see how many students got it right and what they've answered. So it's one way to get an overall check of a whole class. Maybe not the individual students, but you can send that to selected students, whatever it may be. So you get a feel in general, as an overall group, has a class scored well enough to move on? Or do they need some supplemental instruction based on this eligible content? So
The assessment feature in general is going to be so valuable in the fall because there's no other product that has our specific state standards that you can easily, with a click of a mouse, create an assessment that's Pennsylvania standard aligned and assign it to students. That's going to be amazing.
It is. And then we're in the process too of continuing to add more questions with this, because this is going to be a hugely valuable tool as we move forward, and then continue to build on this assessment center. So we're back to the assessment center again. Now, create an assessment. There's two different things you can do. You can create a resource, or you can create a single and say, if we look here, create an item, a constructive response question or a multiple choice question, or create a resource. You could put in a graph for mathematics or a science video or whatever it may be as a resource or an experiment they have to do, and then create multiple questions based solely aligned to that resource. So, and I'm just going to go quickly through, if it's a constructive response we're doing, again, one thing about this is going to be huge: naming conventions. How do you want to name this resource? And that's something you as a teacher, if you're going to do this, or as a district, if you're going to start working on this. Again, this takes time, but the goal is to build quality questions, not just whip a bunch of DOK 1 level questions up, but build some. So naming conventions, you may want to go with standard, DOK level, you know, if it's a resource, what it is going against. So again, and this is by no means good. Click on that little I, considers naming conventions, subject grade, eligible content, and DOK, whatever it may be. Any keywords for a source. If it's aligned to a resource, you would click on here, and then you would look for the resources you have, such as a graph or a video or a passage, and you would align it to that resource. Click on a grade level. We would click on a subject. We would click on, we're not going to click on course, we're not doing that. Here we can align to standards. So you can align to a standard. Now we already did subject and all that, so here we're going to add a standard. And then if you want to add the eligible content, you can add any eligible content you want. And the other thing is looking at Webb's DOK. If you're unfamiliar with Webb's DOK, want a quick overview, you click right on here. This goes to the PD Center. It's a 1-hour Act 48 course, free on Webb's DOK, just to help you out. There's we're going to say a DOK level. Now, we put the stem of the question in, and then you put all your answers, whatever they may be. If you have a rubric, you can put a rubric in also, because we did a constructed response, so that would be it right there. If you do multiple choice, it's going to give you the A, B, and C. You mark which one's correct. You can have more or less, whatever it may be. Again, you can cut and paste right into here with questions that you may already have. And the good thing about this is then you can infuse this with some of the SAS questions, and then you can share this out with fellow teachers. So one way to do this, now you can create a nice assessment that could be a common assessment across the board that is built in SAS. It's the assessment creating question is somewhat of an arduous process. It takes some time, but the goal was to make sure you take some thought, you create good quality questions that can be used over and over and over.
Yeah, and I love that you can use them for the check for understanding. You can also use them for a larger assessment. You can build formative assessment. You can use these questions in so many different ways. You
can create your own questions for a check for understanding and send that out to kids.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's just one avenue that you can get. Again, the data right now is class-wide, or wherever you send it, everybody. You don't drill down to the individual student, but we're getting there. So back to assessment. That's the assessment builder. And again, not much here has changed other than the root for understanding. All right. The last thing is on the yellow box when you're in there, there's My SAS Tools. if anybody ever needs Act 48 hours, the PD Center has lots of courses. We're going to look leadership courses, active registration. I'm not in any of those, but I can't see it here. We click the menu, course registration. All these courses are free for Act 48 hours at self-paced. So not only for teachers, but support teachers, whoever may need Act 48 hours. That's one thing in my SAS Tools, and there's many courses have been added since the summer started. And we're back to my SAS Tools. The other thing is the communities. And again, I think we're working on communities here. Math and the science. Mary, you're going to find your login. I would recommend you go to the Science Learning Community PDE. Dave Bauman puts this out. He does a bi-monthly newsletter, but he has tons of information in this community for not only for teachers in the science world, but for anybody. And in the content repository, it is a wealth of information that is there. And it's a lot of information he can put there that cannot make it to the SAS website at the moment.
And what I appreciate is once you sign up, I don't know if it's a default in your profile, but you get an email too. So it's not like you always have to constantly go back into SAS and check. Like it will send you any type of email updates in that community right to your
Yep.
email.
If something happens, if Dave Bauman puts information in, it's in there. He sends out a bi-monthly newsletter. We all do as content advisors, put that out for resources for teachers. And that's a quick SAS overview.
Kevin, that was really, really helpful. I appreciate your time and all of the amazing resources. I feel like this is going to be a life raft for us teachers in the fall as we're figuring out where our students are, what gaps they may have, where we can accelerate. There's just a wealth of resources for doing online instruction of high quality and face-to-face instruction. So I really appreciate your time sharing this with us.
One more item in the toolbox for educators.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.